Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning to everyone on internet. Today we're gonna have a talk. The topic is Spiritism for Everyday with Marcio. But first we're gonna have our initial prayer and reading with Annabelle.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We're going to read a passage from the book Happy Life from Joanna de Angelis, Psychographic for Devout. And the message is, Jesus said, "Do not let your heart be grieved," teaching that calmness and a belief in God should be the watchwords of any individual desiring to find happiness. There are always reasons for worry, disquieting the heart and perturbing life. Human existence is an opportunity to appreciate eternal riches and inner enlightenment. If you turn your anxieties over to God and trust Him with your life, everything will turn out all right. And if something disturbing does occur, serenity will take charge of the situation and all will be well. For this reason, do not let your heart or mind be unsettled by unfortunate occurrences. Let's do our initial prayer. Dear Jesus, God, our Father, thank you for this moment, this opportunity of study this morning. Help all the spirits who are here with us, trying to learn, to enlighten their pathway. And bless Marcio, who is going to do the lecture for us today. So be it. So be it.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
1 second so I can open my notes. Need them. Okay. All right. So thank you very much for having me today. The lecture of today, we're going to talk basically topics that came from the Gospel According to Spiritism. The Gospel According to Spiritism is the main books that we study in Spiritism that was published by Allan Kardec in 1864. And today what we're going to talk about is how to bring and what is the importance to bring Spiritism to our lives, right? Spiritism, as any other religion, is the way, is the form, is the guidance that give us, what we should be doing, etc., right? But if you recall, in the Spirit's book, question 621, we know everything that we have to do. It's all written in our conscience. It's there where God put all the laws that we have to follow. Okay? So let's keep that in mind, that Spiritism and all the teachings that it bring with it, it's just a guidance for us, just a reminder for us, right? Because everything is within us already, right? So I basically will bring to you guys the chapter 17. It's the chapter the title of the chapter is Being Perfect, Be Perfect, right? And then it talks about the good spiritist. What is to be a good spiritist? And then it starts saying Spiritism, when well understood, but especially when well felt, inevitably leads to the result listed above. And the above is all the moral persons. There is an item before this. So we keep saying here, right, that we need to understand Spiritism. We need to study Spiritism. We need to come to our Wednesday and Thursday studies group, right, or Saturday. That will help us to understand Spiritism better. And understanding Spiritism is nothing else than understanding better the Jesus teachings. However, we need to also feel Spiritist, right? And we need to bring that from our minds to our hearts, right? Because we can see here in Spiritism a lot of people doing lectures, talking about it, being a lot of the intellectual part of Spiritism, right? Be able to talk about Spiritism. But the real thing is, if we are exemplifying Spiritism, if we're living Spiritism, right? That is the moment that we feel it. If we just talking about it, we're not being Spiritist, right? Spiritist is when we put this in practice. And that's how to be a good Spiritist, that you feel it and you live by it. And then continue, which characterize the true Spiritist as well as the true Christian, for they are one and the same. So, the same way in the Gospel, in the previous chapter, says that in the same way that Christ said, I have not come to destroy the law, but to fulfill it, Spiritism says, I have not come to destroy the Christian law, but to fulfill it. So this could be easily the title of this lecture could be, Christianism for Everyday, or even how to be co-creators with God for this planet, right? For this universe. So it's less about Spiritism per se and what we have to do to be, closer to God. And then he continues saying that, where I stop at, Spiritism does not create a new morality, it only makes it easier for people to understand and practice the morality of Christ by providing unshakable, enlightened faith to those who doubt or waver. And why Christ? Why not Buddha? Why not, I don't know, any other great person that came to earth, right? And we learn in the Spirit's book as well, on question 625, that Christ was the most evolved spirit ever incarnated in earth. So he was the best teacher that we ever had, right? We have all the gospel from the apostles give us a good sense of what Jesus brought to us. Right? We do have other spirits that came here with great missions to continue the work and helping us to get closer to God, to Jesus. So we can take those examples as well as in our lives. Right? Why not? Right? If it's a good example, let's follow them. Right? But as a model, we always go back to Jesus, because of the teachings that he brought to us. And then it continues to, nonetheless, many of those who believe in spirit manifestations understand neither their consequence nor their moral implications. So in Spiritism, we have all these communications with the spiritual world, right? And those communications has a purpose. And what that is, right, is to help us to improve morally, to be a better selves of ourselves, right? And how it happens. For example, the letters that Chico Xavier wrote to mothers, right? Those letters would help them to strengthen their faith, bring them the peace that they need to continue their lives, right? So it was not letters to just to satisfy their desire to know where their kids are, but to bring them peace to continue their lives. Or Emmanuel books, Chico Xavier wrote so many psychographic, so many emails, so many books from Emmanuel that it to help us to continue understanding spirituals, bring more teachings or different ways of the same teachings, right? It's not what Emmanuel is bringing to us is nothing new, nothing different from what the spirituals brought. It's nothing new or different from what Jesus brought. It's just a different way. And you know, every person has a different way to understand, to learn. So it's good to have those different ways to say the same message, right? And then with all the communication, the spirit manifestations, we need to understand that we also have an intervention from the spirits in our life every day, right? We know that from the Spirit's book, there's an entire chapter only talking about it, where we can be influenced by spirits, for the good or for the bad, for the bad, right? And we can see that as well on the André Luiz books. If we read, we are reading every Wednesday, we're studying one of those books, right? We can see the influence of the spirits in our day-to-day lives. So we need to be aware of that as well. So all that are manifestations, but what are the consequences to ourselves, right? We need to get those. We need to, be away from the manifestation as a phenomena that happens, and be curious about that, and be more connected to what is the lessons that we can learn from those communications, right? And when we think about these interventions from the spirits, we cannot, we can ask ourselves, okay, how do I know if it's mine, if it's the spirit, And in the Spirit's book again, in question 459, it says it doesn't matter. What matters is what we're going to do with that, Am I taking good use of those inspirations? When we're inspired by a spirit, what are you doing about that? If I have a thought, if it's a good thought, does it matter if it's mine or if it's a spirit? No, it's what I'm going to do with that. Right? If I have a bad thought, if it's mine, if it's a spirit, doesn't matter. What I'm doing with that. Am I acting as that thought, or I'm just saying, oh no, this is the wrong thing. Let me connect to something else. Right? That's the important thing for us. And then it continues, or if they do understand them, do not apply them to themselves. So we believe in all those manifestations. We're reading those books that come from mediumship. We are participating in mediumship meetings. But then what? What do I do with those things? Right? And that's what we, as spiritists, we need to think about, But the real question is, how do we do that? Right? And then he continues saying, the true spiritists are recognized by their moral transformation. So how we do that is work in our moral transformation, right? Change our habits, change our behaviors. And moral transformation usually something that people will not see, unless it's a huge transformation. But thinking about multiple lives, we change a little bit every day. So it's not that we're gonna change from one day to the other, and then people say, oh, no, look, Marcio is so different from yesterday. No. That moral thing is things that people will not see, right? We may change, I became a vegan, or I'm doing more exercise, I'm having better, not drinking, whatever. Those things people can see, right? But that's not moral. Moral is our, when I stop gossiping, when I stop having bad thoughts, when I start to forgive more often, right? So that's what matters. And people will not see that. We're the only ones who can see that, right? And then the efforts that they make to overcome their evil inclinations. So see, the efforts. It's not even, the true spirit is not perfect. Imagine if to be spiritual we need to be perfect. There's no one here. no one would be spiritist. No one would be a good spiritist. And again, it's not about being a good medium. It's not about being a person who is in the spirit center every week. It's not about a person that is doing lectures, right? It's that who's putting an effort on the moral transformation, right? Because we are still all imperfect. And taking the time, making the effort at this point of our lives, at this point of our evolution, is what really matters. It's like babies, right? If they don't keep trying to start walking, they would never walk. We wouldn't be here standing and walking, right? We'll be all, I don't know, lazy, trying to, right? So we need to keep that in mind, that it's to be a good spiritist, we need to have that effort every day. You know, and every morning, every day is a new chance. It's a new opportunity for us to start over and start that transformation. Let's not wait a new life. No, this life is too late. I'm old enough, so next life will change this behavior, that behavior. But then, what do you need to do to change every day? Then we go back to the moral persons. The previous item in this chapter that help us to understand what that is, right? What a moral person does, what a good spiritist does, right? And it starts truly moral persons are those who practice the law. And before I say that, sorry, in the Spirit's book, the Gospel according to Spirit, this item is before the good spiritist, right? I changed the order just to make a point on the lecture, make this the sequence. But in the Gospel according to Spirit, moral persons, nothing about spiritists, right? It's not about spiritists at all. Is where Kardec starts this chapter. Okay, so he says, truly moral persons, are those who practice the law of justice, love, and charity, and its great purity. If they question their conscience about their actions, they ask themselves if they have violated this law. So question their conscience about their actions. Remember in the beginning I said everything is important in our conscience. It's in us. We don't need any religion. We don't need anything to tell us what to do. We just need those reminders because we keep forgetting, right? But it's all in our conscience, and we should use the religions and spiritism as a guidance. And only like that, right? Everything else is the truth is all in our own conscience. We need to question ourselves. What I did this today was right, was wrong, you know? And we just need to be careful because based on our own experience, we create our truths, right? Then we need to compare their truth with the lessons from Jesus. We can ask ourselves, would Jesus do this? Or any other person that you would admire, you say, you know, this person is a great person, or would be a father, you know, not anyone that come to your mind, you know, would that person would do that, right? Otherwise, we can bring those not so true things and use that as an excuse to justify our acts. And that's not what we want, right? And he continues saying that if they have done any evil, if they have done all the good they could, right? And that it should be we need to remember always that not doing bad thing is not enough, right? Not doing any good, you know, is not enough. Because as we learn in the law of action and reaction, if I'm not doing anything, what am I gonna get? Anything. But if I start doing the good, that's what I'm gonna get, right? That's the consequences of our acts. So every time that we hear a joke that can have some prejudice there, or we see something that doesn't seem right, or it's not the the right thing, we should not ignore that. Sometimes it's easier. I don't see, that's not my problem, not my business. Of course, there's circumstance, but if we have the opportunity to do something about it, let's do it. Let's not be, just waiting others to do the right thing, right? If they have willing disregard any opportunity to be useful, if anyone might have a complaint about them, and finally, if they have done unto others everything they would like to have done unto themselves. So this is the easiest way, right? If I'm did something to someone else that I wouldn't like to be done to myself, that's something that I need to correct myself, right? That's the easiest way to do that. And you all know that came from Jesus' teachings as well, right? So for me, this is the easiest way. And also, if someone do something to you, or not someone do something, if you start thinking about, we are talking about this last Wednesday, when you come and you start to talk to yourself and you simulate a conversation with someone else, that hard conversation that you need to have to someone, and you start to simulate that conversation, and you say, oh, that person will say this, this, and that about me, I'm sure. Probably that's something that you would say about someone else, right? So that's how we would act. Because if we are expecting someone else to do something, it's because that person, we may be doing that as well. So we need to look to those conversations wisely and say, okay, what exactly I'm thinking? Would I do this, right? And this seems very, very hard, right? When we read all of this, questioning ourselves, looking to what we have done wrong, but we need to do also the other way. What I'm doing good, right? We should also ask ourselves, what are the good things that I have done today that I can continue doing, right? When we do that exercise of looking both things, it's a good way to say, okay, I'm doing this good, I should continue doing this. I'm good on this, so let me focus a little bit more on this, right? Instead of being only hard to ourselves, it's really easy to get demotivated and just say, okay, whatever, I'm lost, I know, maybe next life. So let's look the good things in us as well, because that will give us the energy, the faith, and the encouragement that we need to keep moving forward, right? So I heard also that you should write one good thing every day and put in a jar, and then at the end of the week or whatever you want, when you feel bad, you go to that jar, read the good things that you have done already. That will boost your energy again to continue moving forward. Right? So the next slides will be all about these chapters and what we could do as a spiritist, as a moral person to become better. This one says, they have faith in God and in God's goodness, justice, and wisdom. They know that nothing happens without God's permission, so they submit to the divine will in everything. What exactly that means? That we should, accept everything as it happens and, just say okay to everything, that we shouldn't be thinking about tomorrow and, God will provide. No, that's not exactly that, right? First, it gives us the strength to say, okay, if I'm going through a hardship, I need to go for that. I have a lesson to learn that. I will not be in despair. I will not go crazy about this, because I know that will pass. I trust God is doing that for me. That's in my path, because I need to learn something from that. And then we say, okay, fine. Let me figure out what the lesson is here for me, right? So it means submit to divine will in those situations where things are not good, is that we know that we're going to pass. We know there is something better will come out of that, right? It also means that all the good things that happen to us is encouragement to continue doing that, right? So all those experiences is helping us to progress, right? Progress towards perfection. And that perfection, as we know so far, it's what Jesus has done to us, right? So we need to take all the opportunities that God is giving to us to improve. There is no suffering without a reason. There is nothing that happens in our lives that there is no reason to happen. Okay? We just need to figure out what that is. And the moment that we do that, we start to feel blessed for that to happen. I'm not saying that it's easy. It's very hard. It's very hard to go through a hardship or a illness and saying, okay, what is in it for me, right? It's not easy. It's not something that we, in our level of evolution, we say, oh, I got it. I'm gonna change this and fix it, right? It's not a computer code that you see something going wrong there, you fix a few things and then start to work well again. No, it's way more complicated than that. But if we start to be open to that, we're going to start realizing it faster. They have faith in the future, thus they place spiritual possessions above temporal ones. So, going back to what we were talking earlier about the things that we need to, in an inner transformation, that we need to change ourselves and nobody sees, those things are the spiritual possessions, right? The things that will help us to become better versions of ourselves. Things like when we put our spiritual possession above temporal ones, it's like very small and simple example. If you have your gospel at home, and that day there's a great TV show or a movie that is coming out, and you want to watch that so badly, I say, okay, so just today, I'm not gonna do my gospel at home to watch this movie. Well, can you watch this later? Is it more important at that point, knowing the importance of the gospel at home, that day, that time? It's better to do your spiritual part before your material one, right? It's also looking to our attitude at work, at home, with our family, with our friends, right? How we are interacting with them. All of those things is what we are putting in perspective compared to the temporal one. So we can ask ourselves, am I doing anything illegal? Am I doing anything that someone will be in trouble because this way of where I'm trying to get my temporal positions, right? Do I have more than I need? Because the moment that we have more than we need, there's someone lacking that thing, right? So we should continue looking for, and that's part of the progress, Law of Progress, Spirit's book. It says, it's okay for us to look for more comfortable place living, right? But how much that is a way of progressing, or we are just being selfish, right? So what I'm doing to get what I need, right? So putting our spiritual possessions above a temporal one is what a moral person would do, right? Their first impulse is to think of others before think of themselves, and to attentively intercept the others before their own. So love your neighbor as you love yourself, right? So the same love that you have for yourself is the love that you're gonna give to others, right? And putting others in first place may be a little bit tricky in some occasions, right? How much you're helping that person versus doing the thing for that person, taking away the opportunity for that person to improve their own self, right? Because it's especially parents, or someone has a team, they're managing a team or something. How much you're really teaching the other person, versus doing for them the work that they should be doing, right? So we need to be careful always on this one, to do not do things for the other person, and second, that we do not start to hurting ourselves because what we think other people need, right? I'm always putting someone else before me, and then that make me sad. No, that's not the objective here, right? So it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be saying no to other people, right? Say no, sometimes helping that person, right? So thinking of other before thinking of themselves doesn't mean saying yes to everything other people is asking and not and doing nothing for yourself. Okay? They hold no hatred or rancor or desire for revenge. Following Jesus' example, they forgive and forget offense and remember only good deeds because they know that they will be forgiven. So for me, the easiest way to forgive is looking to ourselves. Look to our imperfections. See that we are also imperfect. It means that we in our imperfections, we can see that, okay, I also make mistakes. So why this other person couldn't make any mistakes, right? And that help us to be more indulgent to others' weakness. Right? And being indulgent is that the moment that we understand that the other person is imperfect, and then I will not judge that person. I will not go and start to say, hey, look what Marcio did, and put in mind and remember ourselves about what Jesus said. Let him who is without sin cast the first stone. Right? None of us is perfect, so we all make our own mistakes. So it's make much easier to understand. Okay, if I'm making mistakes, other people are also allowed to make mistakes. So that's okay. And going back to that example about, we're all babies trying to learn how to walk, it's, let's look everybody else, at babies morally trying to walk. Right? They never take pleasure in searching for defects in others or in calling attention to them. If necessary forces them to do so, they always look for the good that might mitigate the evil. It's very easy for us to point other people's mistakes. It's very easy to point in others, and even in ourselves. It's very easy to say I'm not doing good in this and this aspect, and very hard to see the good things in other people. Right? And even harder, at least for me, it's really harder to find what is my own qualities, right? So this is a lesson that it's very important for us to start doing. And again, we have the jar of our own good deeds, right? We could have another jar for the other people, right? Especially those that are closer to us. A partner, a child, a boss at work, someone that is closer to us. It's always good to keep that when we, there's this story about, in a tribe. I don't know if it's true or not, but I think it's a really good story. A tribe in Africa that if someone do something wrong, they all put that person in the middle of a circle, and they all start talking about good things of that person has done. So if it's true or not doesn't matter. It matters it's a good thing for us to keep in mind. If I see someone doing something wrong, let me first remember all the good things that that person has done. For those working on corporations, large corporations, you may recall that when you're giving feedback to an employee, they always recommend, start telling the good things, and then you go and tell what the person needs to improve. It's not what the person is not doing right, but what the other people need to improve. So if we can do that at work, why we cannot do that in our own personal life with people around us, right? And they say, if the social order has placed others under their tutelage, they treat them with kindness and benevolence because they are equals before God. They use their authority to lift their morale and not to squash them with their pride. They avoid anything that could render their subordinates' position more painful. And as we can use for any type of relationship, right? Parents to kids, managers at work to their subordinates, government and the civic people, teachers and students, or a priest and people that go to that religion, that church, right? So we are all equal, although in the society we have different positions, right? And there's a reason all of that should happen, right? But at the end, we are all equal before God, and that we are all in this process to help each other on the evolution. And those in these positions in the tutelage of others, they have the responsibility not for the actions of that person, but for the bad or good guidance that they give to that person. So a parent, for their entire life, they will be giving guidance to their kids, right? So what kind of guidance are we giving to those that we're being the tuteler, I guess, something like that? So what is the guidance that we're giving to others when they come to us as a subordinate, right? So that we always need to keep in mind. And again, we're not be responsible for their actions, right? A parent is not going to jail because their son or daughter has killed someone else, right? But what is their responsibility? What guidance they gave to that kid so they do not become that kind of person, right? So that's their responsibility. And the other way around as well. Those who are subordinate, on the other hand, understand the duties of their position and are scrupulous in consciously fulfilling them. So we may not always understand. I always remember when I was a teenager, a lot of things that I asked my parents to do, and they always say no, 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 no. And at that time, I didn't understand why. Why I cannot go to this bike? Why I cannot do this? Why I cannot do that? And then later on, or maybe now, I'm starting to understand that that was the way to educate me, right? To teach me some values that that I cannot have everything that I want, right? So a lot of values, a lot of things that my parents used to tell me, I'm starting to get now what that really means, right? So we need to understand that they are in that position for a reason. They may have lived or seen things or have access to information that we don't. So their decisions, we need to respect those decisions that are made by them. It doesn't mean that they don't make mistakes. They do. They are, as we said, equal. They have their imperfections as well. They may have informations and they may use that for the best way that they can, but they may make some mistakes. But as a subordinate, what we should be doing is, okay, I understand they may make some mistakes. I may not understand everything. I will respect and I do my best to help that person to be successful, right? Whatever the social position is, right? Someone at work, a priest, father, whatever it is, we can help that. So these are a summary. I choose a few paragraphs of this chapter. It's a little bit longer than what we saw here today, so I truly recommend you to read this chapter. It's a very good one for us to learn what we need to do to bring spiritism to our lives. But before we close, I do want to do this practice of questioning our conscience, right? Something that we should be doing. I don't know how many of you guys are doing this today, but maybe we could do this a little bit here at TSS today. It's very simple. You don't need to say anything. It's all between you and your own conscience, right? You don't need to share, you don't need to talk, you just do it in your own mind. So if you are comfortable, just close your eyes. You don't have to if you don't want, just if you're comfortable, just close your eyes. And think about one thing that you believe you did good, you did the right thing. Now tell yourself why it was the right thing. Based on what we have been discussing, what is a moral person would do? Why this is a good thing? Now that your conscience telling you why it's a good thing, be thankful to God for the help you got to achieve that. Because we're not alone. We always have our guardian angels helping us. We always have that good spirit that is next to us, inspiring us. So let's thank God for all those help that we get. And you can do that as many examples you want to do during the day. But then let's think about what we need to improve. So think about one thing you believe that you have not done right. Think that you said, I screw up this day. And again, think about what was wrong, why it was wrong. What goes against your own conscience, your own principles, things that you have learned. And about judging yourself, just think, how can I correct that? What can I do to avoid that to happen again? And again, thank God for that opportunity. For the opportunity to continue being alive, continue being in this planet, to correct any mistake that you have done. Okay? So that's what St. Augustine, if I'm not mistaken, tell us to do every night. At the end of our days, we could do this and start thinking and planning for the next day. And again, religions, Spiritist is here to guide us. But everything is in our conscience. Spiritism is not for us to live when we are here at GSS. It's not for us to come here, study, and then go outside and do the opposite, right? Sometimes we do that. But that's okay. We learn. It's important for us to keep all of this in our minds and practice that. Right? And to finish, based on what I saw this, especially during Christmas, right? They put this calendar of good deeds until the Christmas day. So I thought that we could have something that remind what we learned today. And I should have printed some, but we maybe could put in our website or something. We figured out that, right? But here's a few things that, and I try to mix some things that sometimes it's hard, like call someone that you felt offended by, you know, not to tell this person, I forgive you. No, that's not the intent here, but try to understand what's happened to them with a little thing, like pray for a better word, hold the door to someone else, right? That's not hard. That's easy. We can do it, right? So all of this help us to keep the lessons in our day to day. You can customize. I put others here if you want. You can customize with your own things. As you start to think about what you need to improve, you could create your own calendar. It doesn't need to be day by day a different thing. It could be one lesson per week. You can do whatever you want, as to use as a reminder. So this is just one example. You can keep it there for you and figure out a way to share online to everyone. Okay? That's what I have for you guys today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marcio. Is there any questions? Everybody's still digesting all the suggestions. Any questions on the internet? No? Okay, let's get ready for the class. And that's it. Call it on.